The Navigating Disability podcast often discusses topics including disability, injury, mental health, and mentions of sensitive issues such as trauma and suicide. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care while listening. Today, we're joined by Robb Evans, a high-performance coach, health strategist, and founder of Studios Personal Training. With over 37 years of experience, Robb has helped thousands transform their health and lives. But Robb's mission became even more personal after the loss of his daughter Liv to anorexia. In her honour, he founded Liv's Legacy, raising over $56.5 million to support eating disorder recovery and prevention. Through his coaching, podcasts, and advocacy, Robb empowers others to build resilience, mental toughness, and a life of purpose. We're honoured to have him here with us today. Welcome, Robb.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's going to be a difficult conversation for me personally, I'm sure for you. I'd love to know a little bit about where it all started.
Well, where it started was not where we understood, because Liv wasn't prepared to talk about what it was that had caused her to have an eating disorder. Where it started was I just noticed that she'd started to leave a little bit of food on her plate and not eating it. And when asking her about what's going on, she said, I'm just not hungry, not hungry. And I'd probably noticed it for a week. And then when she went to her mum's place, I said to her, have you noticed any change? And she said, oh, she's saying she's not hungry and leaving some food and that kind of thing. And so from there, like fairly quickly, we escalated to our GP to just find out. He kind of gave him the heads up to say, look, this is what we think is happening, but can you just check her vitals and all that kind of stuff, and maybe have a conversation with her, and maybe somebody outside the home having a conversation would maybe do something for her. But when he weighed her and did a few tests, he said, you need to go to ED now, and they need to do some more tests on you, like blood tests and all that kind of stuff, to make sure you're all okay. And so that's what started like a 2-year journey. And or what started out as something that we thought we could get a hold of, and she was quite happy in hospital, and we thought that at some point we would get a breakthrough. Unfortunately, it just got worse and worse, and every admission and every time she came, every discharge she came out, she was just a little bit worse. And she had over 40 hospital admissions, and well, actually she had 40. Her last one was her 40th. And I don't know exactly, but probably over half of those were done under CTO, community treatment order, and which involved police and ambulance, if people don't really understand what that means. And essentially it means all your rights as a parent are taken away and handed over to...
Is that an involuntary admission?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, yeah. And that's why we needed it, because she just refused to go. So we couldn't actually safely get her to hospital any longer. So it was a very traumatic experience, and I had to do all of it because it was too traumatic for her sister, who was 2 years older, and her mum to handle. So I would always do it. And so the police needed to be there because the ambulance couldn't put hands on them for legal reasons. And so yeah, it was very messy. It would often involve me pulling her out from underneath her bed and carrying her to the stretcher. She would then be 6-point restraints. I would hold her down. She'd kick, bite, scratch me. I'm trying to protect the police and the ambos and stuff. And then she'd be medicated multiple times, and they couldn't understand why the medication wouldn't work. And because she was just so wound up. And we would not know whether she was going to be in hospital for a few days or over a month. It was a very, very traumatic experience for her each time. And what do you do as a parent? You've just got to you've just got to step up and do what's required for your child when, when it's required.
Looking back over the journey from when she was born to when this first occurred, can you see any indications that maybe you missed as a parent? Because as parents, we always want to believe the best. Um,
Yeah, look, I mean, she was different to her sister Em, and she was a difficult child. Like, there's always a hard one, it seems. One
Absolutely.
sleeps better and one doesn't, and stuff. So yeah, Liv was yeah, more difficult. She didn't sleep as well. She was very strong-willed, and all these sorts of things. And look, as we went through her journey with her eating disorder, it was like over around 2 years. We went through so many different tests, and like genetic tests. We're about to start the genetic testing, but all kinds of different blood tests and scans and all kinds of things to try and work out, is there something going on? We found out she was celiac in the process, and she also got an ASD diagnosis through this as well.
That's really
Uh,
interesting. I was going to ask you that if and
mm.
I don't know why that came to mind, but it
Well, I mean, if somebody has ASD, they've got like something like a 20% more chance of having an eating disorder. And look, just going through the process, you could just tell by the questions and our answers to those questions that you wouldn't ask the question if, there wasn't a connection to a diagnosis down the track. And like every question we're answering, it's like, yes, yes, she did that. And so, were there signs back when? Yeah, she was a child. So, for instance, she didn't breastfeed very well. There's a lot of problems there. So, like, can you be born with this or whatever? I mean, ultimately, I remember having a lot of conversations with her and saying, "Look, Liv, did you know what caused this?" And she said, "Yeah," but she said, "I'm not telling you." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, if you know, at least that gives you an opportunity to understand what's going on, and if." There is somewhere along the way that helps her understand, um, hearing a solution to how she processes it, then that would help. So, I mean, there's something I didn't press her for it. I was just proud that she understood that, where it had come from. But it wasn't until about 18 months in, and it was when she was in a longer stay in hospital. And one day I was in there on a weekend, and she came over, and again, because of the ASD, she went through as she got older. You couldn't touch her, or she was very, very withdrawn. And she came over and sat on my knee and put her arm around me and asked me to tell her what it was like when I was bullied, because I was bullied as well. And I was talking to her about it, and she'd never really asked the questions in the way that she had. And we are talking about 5 minutes or so, and then she just said, "Yeah, I was bullied too." And like, I knew in the moment that that was a massive breakthrough without sort of saying, "Oh my God, finally we get to find out." And yeah, so she told me all about it. She was bullied at school. She was body shamed. She was shamed for eating certain foods and stuff, and that, yeah, really, really impacted her. She had uh, big problems forming friendships, which is probably not a surprise if someone's on the spectrum and stuff. I think one of her challenges was she's very much like me and likes having deep conversations, but she liked having those sorts of conversations when she was really young, and like trying to understand that, when you're playing in the sand pit, that kids don't really want to talk about some of those deeper things. They just want to eat the sand or throw sand or whatever.
mm,
Yeah, that's really, really hard. And the friendships that she did form in like primary school, the kids then left the school, not because of Liv, but just by circumstance. They either left school, the parents, moved away, moved interstate or whatever. And every single time she found someone, something like that happens. Like, oh, can she just get a break? And then when she went to high school, she found a few friends there, and she seemed to be very happy. And it was a big. I've got video of her saying how, um, yeah, she's really pleased with the change, and she's got some good friends and so forth. But I guess as time went by, some of those things don't always play out the way that you think, and because she was already sensitive and trying to find her place in the world, when people attack you like that, it really deeply impacted her. And so by the time she was able to talk about it, it's kind of like a tiger with its claws, and the claws were so far in. Even though I never gave up even when we had to make the decision to switch off her life support, I was like, I just don't believe it. Like she's going to be okay. Um,
You don't want to believe it.
yeah, well, I just didn't. I just thought, she's going to recover from this. She's going to find a way through. We'll help her find a way through. But
Do you
uh,
think her not being diagnosed, do you think that was a catalyst
mm,
to get
look,
to?
it's easy with hindsight to say, oh, if we knew this, this, and this, things would be different. I think the short answer is, if I don't know, it's almost like when they're born and they come with an instruction manual. Okay, here's your child, and these are the things that
Wouldn't that be great?
they've got celiac, they're celiac, they're on the spectrum and all that kind of stuff. If we knew that, then I think that would have greatly helped us be able to have conversations with her to help her understand. One of the challenges for her, because the diagnosis took quite a long time, because she was in hospital so much, and it was so traumatic for her, because every single feed, like up to 6 times a day, she'd be held down by security, force fed with a tube down into her tummy and all that kind of stuff. It was very, very traumatic for her. And so she was often not in a good headspace to sit through hours of
Mm.
the questioning and all that kind of stuff. So they had to pick and choose when the right time to do that was. And when they'd finished everything and we were waiting for like the outcome, I mean, we kind of knew that it was coming, and it was just a matter of time. And I remember having a number of conversations with Liv and just saying, look, what do you think that it's going to mean for you? And she used to be quite hard on herself, and she was kind of okay with it. And I said, the thing to remember is that it doesn't change you as a person. All it does is gives you information. And I said, that can be really powerful. I said, if I knew some of the things about me that I know now when I was a child, then it would make sense to me that, oh, that's why I think that way. And that's why maybe I can't relate to those things, or why I don't enjoy those things. And it doesn't make it wrong and other people right. It's just more information for you to understand how do you manage yourself. And she kind of got that. But on the actual day of the assessment, I can't remember. I couldn't go to the assessment. So she went with her mum, and she took it really, really badly. And she called herself a freak. She said, look, I've got anorexia, I'm celiac, and now I've got this. She said, I'm just a complete freak. And like she got very emotional in the meeting, and she really shut down. By the time she came to my place, she was kind of a little bit more in understanding of what the diagnosis meant, and just trying to sit with her and allow her to understand it.
Is it
Um,
understanding, Rob, or is it acceptance? Or is it both?
well, I think it's probably both.
Yeah.
I mean, she understood who she was. I guess when a label is put on something, and how perhaps she had perceived maybe others with ASD, she just thought, well, it's just another reason why I'm a freaky person and different to everybody else. And so that was really hard for her. I think over some more time, I don't know that she ever accepted it, to be honest, because it was towards the end of her life. Um, but yeah, I mean, if we knew this up front, then yeah, absolutely. If we knew the about the bullying up front, then I would have homeschooled her and found other ways to socialize her. Because COVID was actually good for her she didn't have to have the pressure of the socialization and all that kind of stuff. And she was actually really, really happy. But like we're in Melbourne here, and like we were locked down like 6 times and like a ridiculous number of days. And I think it was, I don't know, maybe the third or fourth lockdown where we were only open for like 2 weeks, and then we went back into lockdown again for another month or a couple of months or whatever. And it happened in between one of those where she went back to school for a short period of time. And I never talk about the event because I don't know whether the kids that bullied her know that they bullied her or not. But if I name the timing, it could cause distress to, them and their parents. So I don't want to do that. But she went back, and that's when it happened, but she just kept it to herself. And I think the reason that it happened was certainly kids changed, adults too, but they seemed to get meaner over all the different lockdowns. There was not as much discipline. There was more time on, just devices, freedom, whatever. And they just seemed to become a little bit more nasty, less kind. And unfortunately, Liv, being a sensitive little soul, she copped it, and she couldn't really manage it or talk about it, unfortunately. So,
Just ask I've really loved the way you've spoken today, and it's all about live, and it is in a positive light. It's not about you. How did you cope during those numerous hospital admissions, seeing your daughter in there, not being able to do anything?
well, when I was younger, I would say mental toughness was my weakest point. Like I was I'm a shorter man. I'm only like 165 centimeters. I was always the shortest kid in the school, so I was an easy target. Like I was physically, beaten up and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't have a very good self-image, self-confidence, that kind of thing. But there was a moment in my life when I was 20, somebody threatened to kill me, and I'm like, "Do you know what? I'm too old for this stuff now. I've got to do something about it. And I started to, work out, and I wanted to get bigger muscles. And I thought that's where my confidence would come from. And through that process, I realized that it actually had nothing to do with my body and all about how I thought about myself and processed that. And so ever since then, I have worked on myself every single day to make sure that I can just show up as a better man. And I restructured my whole life and career so that I could spend more time with my girls and raise them. So when I was on divorce now, but when I was married, my wife, she went back to work like 4 days a week. I was starting my business, and I just wanted to spend more time with both my girls, just to show them that I was a good dad for them. And so when it came to Liv's hospitalization, I mean, I didn't even think about uh, like me in that process, because it was all about her and saving her and protecting her and helping her get through this. And like I said before, I never ever gave up once. And she said to me, which breaks your heart. I look over here because I have her photo here. And she said, "Dad, do you ever regret having me?" And I said, "Never. Live, not for one moment ever." And she used to, go through such traumatic pain, and she'd ask me to kill her and just hire a hitman and have her shot and all this kind of stuff. And she would just scream for hours in hospital, and all these kinds of things. And sometimes the only thing you can do um, as a parent is to sit with them, in the pain. With her, I would often sit with her on the floor in the hospital, with her just between my legs, holding her to stop her from hurting herself, until, that stopped. And sometimes it'd be 15 minutes, sometimes it would be longer. But I was the only person that could do it for her, and then she'd be calm, and then she would be okay. Sometimes she'd be in restraints for, um, 30, 40 minutes, just screaming and howling and everything. And all you could do is just sit there and, kind of stroke her hair or her forehead or,
So did
hold
you
her.
work whilst she was in hospital?
Hmm. Yes, yeah. I guess running my own business, it gave me some flexibility, but also, you've got to keep going as well. And I had another daughter, well, have another daughter, Am, and she needed my attention as well because it's hard for her to. I know what it's like to have my daughter go through it, but I don't know what it's like to have a sibling go through it. And so her mum and I used to kind of tag team. So there was always someone, not all the time there, but we would be there every day. And towards the end, I would spend hours a day just because like the hospital, like a return trip is an hour and a half to 2 hours. So I would just Zoom call her on her MacBook for hours and hours just to try and help her, like, maybe it's another 10 minutes that changes her life. Like she
Just
could
don't
just
know.
feel a little bit calmer to, get to sleep tonight or, do something like that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't even know that there was a time when I thought about myself, to be honest, apart from being tired and whatever. And obviously, one of the things that both her mum did do is we're always looking for a solution. What's an alternate approach to the treatment, etc. And unfortunately, every single thing that we asked for, they said no to. And me being a male and working in the fitness industry, I was blamed for her illness, and I was accused of some horrific things. Her mum was never asked or accused, but um, I was accused by some of the most senior people in the hospital system of some absolutely horrific things. And, I know the truth. Liv knew the truth. And Liv used to say, Dad, why do they keep coming after you? And I said, well, it's because, Liv, that when people can't find the answer in what their treatment is, it's easy to blame someone else. And I said, I'm the scapegoat. But I said, don't you worry about me. I said, I'm tough enough to handle this. And I said, it doesn't make a difference to me because it has no impact on you recovering. So.
Take you to the time when she has passed, and you said before that you didn't believe it was going to happen. You just thought that she was going to get better. When
Mhm.
it did actually happen, how did you get through that?
Um, well, it was very surreal. I mean, on the day before she passed, she was due to go to a doctor's appointment, and she knew at the end of that doctor's appointment she would need to go to hospital, and so that would be the CTO, ambulance, police, etc. And um, she had. She was at her mum's place, and she obviously had an action plan in place that none of us knew about. I
Can I
won't talk.
just say, can I just
Mm,
ask? You said that at the end of that doctor's appointment, everyone knew that she would have to go to hospital, including herself. Was her cognition affected so much that even though she knew what was coming with the police and the ambulance and everything else, she still couldn't take herself to hospital?
yeah,
Was that a
yeah.
cognition thing?
I mean, she just didn't want to go. I mean, because um, in her words, the treatment's dehumanizing, and
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, I get it from the perspective of I've been in the room and holding her head and trying to help them get tubes in and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know what that feels like. I don't have the body dysmorphia and things like that to understand what she must have been going through every single time. But she just did not want to go back and be put through that dehumanizing process again and having all these strangers touch her and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I don't talk about how, or what she did, but when I was checking in with her that morning before she went to the doctor, Um, she seemed really flat and just maybe not exactly herself. And so I went around with Em and said, let's take her just down to the park for a few minutes or something. And so I went around and yeah, when she came outside, she just wasn't making sense. It just didn't make sense. I said, all right, let's go back inside. And then, you know, things happened, and I said to her mum, I said, call the ambulance now. They need to come right now and just tell them this. And yeah, so then she went to hospital just like I went with her every other time before, except this time was different. We got her into the ambulance, and she's in the ambulance, and she just kept saying, where's my dad? Where's my dad? Where's my dad? And I would follow in the car behind the ambulance, and I'd just gone to my car to get a bag, and she's just screaming like, "Where's Dad? Where's my dad?" And so I came back. I said, "I'm here to live," and she'd never ever said this before, and she said, "Dad, I'm so scared," and I'm like, hmm,
So
okay,
it's
that's
almost like
different.
she knew.
Yeah, yeah. And so obviously I knew some information, but not exactly. And so we went to hospital and, we told them, what had happened or what we've seen had happened. And then we found out fairly quickly what had actually happened. And so then they started a treatment process, and, everything seemed to be improving. And so from there, she needed to go to ICU. And so I can't even remember, but time kind of stands stills and goes at snail pace and flies all at the same time. By midnight that night, she was up in ICU and she was settled and everything, and things were improving for her. She was semi-conscious, but just groggy from all the medication stuff that they'd given her. And she was settled. She'd been in ICU, I don't think twice before, um, and they said, yeah, she's improving. So I kissed her goodnight and I went home. And then the next day, the nurse rang me and said, yeah, her, things are improving, et cetera, et cetera. Later that day, well, it was like morning or something, a few hours later, and one of the doctors rang and said, uh, what time are you coming in for a meeting? And like, keep in mind at this point, we've had so many meetings over 2 years, and so many times you go to these meetings and there's just, nothing. And so, it's an hour and a half to 2 hour turnaround trip for both her mum and I. And I said, oh, can we just do like a Zoom call, which we've done before? And they said, no, you need to come in. And I said, is everything okay? Oh, you need to come in. I said, I don't understand, because I just spoke to the nurse and she told me that everything's improving. Oh, you need to come in. So it's like, okay. So we go in for the meeting, and this is a meeting where it's in a different room, and there's more people than we've met with ever before in one meeting. And they said by the time this meeting finishes, the Royal Children's Hospital team will be here. Liv needs to go to the Royal Children's for a liver transplant. And we're like, well, what are you talking about?
Where did that
Like,
come from?
yeah. And so obviously because of what had happened for her, they said her liver is pretty much gone. And yeah, she needs to have that. So yeah, they arrived, and they hooked her all up, and they said don't bother coming for a number of hours, because it's going to take them like an hour and a half or whatever to get to the Royal Children's from Monash Children's, and it's going to take them a while to get her all settled and all that kind of stuff. And then I don't remember all the exact timing of things. Her mum went into to be with her for a bit. I was there with Emily, and she didn't come to that meeting. And yeah, then I think it was, I don't know, it was later that day or something, and I got a call from one of the doctors, and they said, when are you coming in? And I'm like, oh, I'm coming in a couple of hours, kind of thing. I said, oh, we think you need to come in quicker than that. And I'm like, I said, is this an end of life thing? And they said, yeah. And so I grabbed Em and said, Em, we got to go. And so, of course, we've got this drive in peak hour traffic, which took us about an hour and 45 minutes to the Royal Children's. And then her mum was in there with her in ICU there. And so we go in, and obviously as you can probably imagine, there's machines everywhere and tubes in her. She's obviously unconscious. And then we weren't there for long, and one of the doctors came and said, "Can I speak to you both?" Um, and they said that it's not a question of if, but when you want to turn off the life support. And they said, we've done absolutely everything, thrown every like medication and whatever. She's effectively brain dead. She's not responding to anything. And, if we switch the machines off in about 10 minutes, she'll pass. And so even at that point, I'm like, what the hell? And anyway, we just asked for some time to speak together without anyone else in the room. And we yeah, I guess we kind of figured that this was the 14th attempt that Liv had made on her life. And like the doctor said, she's kind of made that decision for us. And probably the gift that we can give her right now is to switch off her machines.
And give her peace.
Yeah, that's right. And so we it happened all fairly quickly. We went back in, told Am, and said, "What if we just each say our goodbyes?" And I said, "Do you want to stay?" And she said, "What will happen?" I said, "Well, they said it would take about 10 minutes." She said, "I don't want to stay for it." So we each said our goodbyes, and then Em and I left, and her mum stayed there for a bit. And as I'm walking down the corridor, as we're walking out of the place, I just wanted to die. It's like I need to die within the next few minutes so I can be there waiting. Like I'm not a religious person, but it just felt like I needed to be there to protect her at the end of it. And then, I look to my left, and it's like, oh, there's Em, and she needs me right now more than ever. So I got to find a way to process this. And it was I I don't think I could even find the words to describe what it feels like. Nothing can ever prepare you for anything like that. To go from like 24/7 constant care, and having to deadlock every door and window and keep things locked up and hidden and all of that. And then just in that moment, everything changed, and like life is so different
Yeah,
just in that moment.
it's almost a freeing moment. Not that you would ever want it, but was it like a weight lifting off your shoulders?
Not really, but I understand what you're saying, because like all of that sitting with, trying to get her to eat, and trying to help her with her mindset, and trying to protect her, and from self-harming, and doing all of these other sorts of things. I think that probably came maybe over time, where it's like, goodness, like she used to say, well, at least if I'm not here, you won't have to worry about me and all these things and stuff. And I said, Liv, I don't care how long this takes. I'm not giving up on you.
How
And
did
I
you
think,
one foot in front of the other?
well,
And
I,
obviously the
I, re-
child always makes you keep going.
yeah, look, record 2 podcasts every single day, and I still kept doing that every single day. The very next day, I don't even remember whether I slept much that I don't even remember it. But at like around midnight that night, the doctor called to say that she had passed, and she passed peacefully, and then said, "You need to come back tomorrow to sign some paperwork." And I'm like, "You have to be kidding me. Like, seriously, you have to be kidding me." And so I went back the next morning. I recorded a podcast on the way to try and distract me from the blooming drive and everything. It was like the most emotional podcast, obviously, I've ever done. I had to do, sign some paperwork and stuff. It was just unthinkable that they had me go back and do those things. They gave me a box of live stuff. I was so, I'm a calm man, but like it was a horrible moment to go back to that same room where we had to switch off her life support and sign paperwork, and they give us a box with her, like handprints and footprints and some hair and like her blanket. That was her favorite blanket, and I couldn't look at her. I just took the box and I just wanted to get out of there. And yeah, I think in the days that when I don't know, I just can't sit and do nothing. And I knew that I needed to do something to help distract me from the pain as well. Otherwise, you just sit around in the fetal, but well, that doesn't make, yeah, well, lie in the fetal position, sit in the, just rocking in the corner or whatever. And I didn't want to do that. And I think it was by about the second or third day, I'm thinking of ways of what I can do. And it just came to me that the only therapy that worked for Liv was dog therapy. So I said, all right, I'm going to raise $10,000 for dog therapy to help other kids out in the Avery ward at Monash. And so I started to GoFundMe page. In about 3 days, we had $3,500 from around the world because I've got, some international, connections. And I don't know, about 4 days, I met with the head doctor and head child psychiatrist at Monash and said, this is what I want to do. And anyway, my goal was 10,000. We got to 10,000. And I guess what started with dog therapy, so they now have a full-time dog therapy program at Monash Children's. We have a dog therapy program at Alfred Health as well here, which is also like Southeast. That's the one that we're funding. The good news is that Monash Children's is self-funding, even though we would like them to do it more frequently. But the funding that I raised is funding the one at Alfred Health. They're having tremendous feedback about that. And yeah, I really didn't know where it would go. It's like, all right, that's what I want to do. I just want to raise $10,000 for dog therapy and then I'm done, kind of thing. And then uh, one thing kind of led to the other. And because Liv was, because of the way that she passed and her age and everything, she had to go to the coroner. And that's a bit of a yucky process and it takes time. And then it took time for us to be able to get her body, and then she wanted to be cremated. So that then takes a period of time. And so it was about a month, I think, until her memorial service. We did the memorial service and like there were so many people there. I think 30 people from Monash came because she just um, touched that many people. And I had literally just come home from the service and I had taken off this tie. This is her favorite tie. Taken off my tie when I worked in the door, and her mum called me and said, Liv's been mentioned in Parliament today. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like what's the context? Who mentioned her? What's it about? And so Independent Zoe Daniels stood up in Parliament and spoke about Liv because somebody that spent some time in hospital with Liv wrote to her and said this was what happened to Liv. And anyway, what we wanted to keep private was made public about Liv taking her life. And from that speech, the federal government put in $50 million extra into research into eating disorders. And so that was I raised the first 10,000. That was the 50 million. And then, so that happened on, I think, the Thursday. The next day, I've got the media like all over it. And so I did interviews on the weekend and a photo shoot with the Herald Sun, and then it was ABC radio. And then Monday morning, I was on live ABC News. And then Tuesday, I was interviewed by Channel 9. And then every week to 2 weeks since Liv passed, I've done media. And I just went from, one, I thought, all right, well, I say that Liv is kind of guiding me. It's like she's getting on the phone or something and saying, hey, my dad can help with this, contact him. And so it opened a lot of doors so that I didn't have to go through gatekeepers, and I'm meeting with CEOs and all that kind of stuff. And the next big thing was I met with Alfred Health, and this was before the dog therapy came. And then I said, what was their big challenge? And they started talking about this. They put up a grant application for an in-home eating disorder program. They told me a bit about that, and it made me emotional because I said, this is the sort of program that would have saved Liv's life. And they wanted $3.8 million. And I said, I don't know how, but I'm going to get this funded for you. And of course, they didn't know me, and they're probably thinking, yeah, right, because they've never had a grant. They've never got funding before. And so I then just went on a mission to the PM, opposition leader, state, federally, and just built relationships and had so many different meetings. Anyway, a lot of things happened in the process. And May last year, they actually gave $6.5 million for 2 programs. And it was all because of the work that, well, it's really Liv, but I just kind of carrying the message and so forth. And I took a big gamble because it's never been done before, and they've never got the funding for it before. And I think I'm going to officially launch it in this month sometime. So
You,
that was the big thing that I really wanted to do, and I thought, I'm done. And then 60 Minutes got involved. They approached me about doing a story, and then the impact of social media and stuff, because that did have a negative impact on Liv that we didn't realize really as much as it really did. And it was it was 10 days after I got the funding notification that Whipper and his team up in Sydney reached out to me for the 36 Months project and said, we'd like you to be involved with raising the age of social media from 13 to 16. I think 2 days after, or 3 days after that, I flew to New South Wales Parliament. I've never done more media in my life, and my first live press conference, and did all that. And then we went to federal Parliament in the 7th of November last year, met the PM, the opposition leader. I always take Liv with me in her, and I don't have her here with me today. She goes from house to house. I took her with me, met with the PM face to face, and Liv's story, along with Charlotte O'Brien, their collective stories moved both the PM and the opposition leader to tears. I mean, say what you like about the politics, and I put that aside. They're human people. They are good people. Just forget the politics side of it. And within 14 days, it was passed as legislation. So now we've protected, our kids from 13 up to the age of 16. And that definitely would have helped Liv because she was so vulnerable and, trying to identify her own self-image and so forth. So, to be frank, I didn't want to do any of that. I just didn't.
do you
But I
feel that this
felt,
is now your path?
well, I believe it's like I didn't think, all right, I have to start Liv's legacy. It was a case of I just thought I just want to raise some money for dog therapy to help other kids because I could see what Liv went through. And I didn't realize it was going to get to where it is. And then I just realized that, well, what I wanted to do, this makes me emotional, but um, like she was only 15 and such a beautiful girl, and I didn't want the world to not know who she was. And I just felt and still feel it's my role as her dad to just make sure that the world knows, who she is. And it's her that's having the change. And now it's international. Like I've done so many interviews with China, Japan, Sweden, French TV also reached out. I couldn't do that one, but it's now international because they're watching Australia as to what's happening, particularly in the social media space. And even though China don't have Facebook or Instagram, they have their versions, they have exactly the same problems
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of what it does to their kids and everything. So I do believe that my it's my job to keep carrying forward her legacy.
Actually
I'm
don't
proud.
think you have a choice, Rob. This is what you were meant to do. This is,
Well,
yeah,
I,
Liz would be
I
looking
don't know. There are
so proud.
Yeah, yeah, and I know that she'd be proud of herself too because I'm just the mouthpiece of all this. I mean, I was awarded Citizen of the Year, and in my speech, I said, "Look, it's not me, it's Liv. It's might be my name on the certificate, but it's all her." And so I say no to more things now than I say yes to because people want a piece of you. People say, "Oh, will you come and speak to this parent or whatever?" And I say, "No, sorry, I'm not going to do that. That's I'm focusing on much bigger things. I won't I won't speak at schools. I have to protect my own mental health as well through all this. That's super important. And uh, again, I like just speaking at a school. There's so many people that want to speak at schools. Let them do it. Like I was determined to come at it from a different perspective. And ultimately, I want to change the whole treatment process for eating disorders because it's so effed up. That is ridiculous, and it ended my daughter's life. Like, how can the treatment end a life?
Yeah.
Like, so how can somebody want to kill themselves rather than go through the treatment? It's like it just doesn't make any sense. And so I knew I needed to get runs on the board. And so safe to say I've got a few runs on the board now. And then I organized a meeting with the CEO of Monash, who was relatively new, he's coming up to a year now, I think. I met with him and told him that I want us to make Monash the world's best treatment facility for eating disorders. And I said, I want to start with this particular aspect, which is having a hospital in the home. I said, you approve the business case and call me and I'll get the funding for you. And so I'm still waiting for that phone call, but he said, you're very inspirational. So that is my dream for that. It's obviously a long way away from happening, but I guess that's kind of where I wanted to go, but I thought no one's going to listen to me. But now at least they know what I've been able to do and what Liv
I
has
think
been
you've
able to do.
proven them very, very wrong.
And
You
every single thing that we asked for Liv, I've met with the head doctors, and they want to change everything so that they would do everything that we asked for. They want to talked about naming a ward after Liv and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know what's next, to be honest, but normally
you
wait a
know
couple.
that was going to be my next question. Where does this take Rob?
Well, I did. I say something happens every sort of 2 weeks. I did some media last week. I did some media the week before. There's people just reach out when they need something. So I'm not actively looking for anything now. I feel like I've done a lot. I have to run a business. I've got to run, me as a person, look after my daughter as well. And this is really, really draining stuff. And whenever I do media, and even this, and in saying this, I don't want you to feel bad, but whenever I go deep with Liv on stuff, it shows up as like physical fatigue.
It's
So it generally wipes me somewhere between 1 to 4 hours afterwards,
yeah.
and I can't really do too much for the rest of the day. I just know that that's how it lands, and I accept it. Have a bit of a cry if I need to, and then say, okay, I need to do something lighter, and then kind of move on into the whatever the next thing is. I'll look at some videos of her or do something and be proud of her and stuff, and then move on. So a lot of it is really determined by overseas media. I know that. So I did um, a big Chinese network, a Japanese TV network, and a Japanese newspaper a couple of weeks ago. Those stories I don't believe have aired yet. I certainly haven't seen them. Liv was part of I think I've done 16 to 19 TV interviews and stuff. Now, she was part of a four-part docuseries, which I haven't even watched that yet. She's in episode 3 of that. That was the very first interview that I did actually, and that was a long one. So I just don't know, what's next. I'm not, like I said, if the CEO from Monash calls me and says, "Hey, we're ready now, let's meet and do it," then I think that's my ultimate goal. Having said that, I thought the $6.5 million or the 3.8 million for Alfred Health was the ultimate. I know that, well, working with the 36 months project team, that's Whipper's team and on the social media, they have been having conversations with the UK, and so there's probably a chance that we'll do something with the UK government or bodies this year. There's also been some talk about some of the royal family members that are passionate about this, doing some work with them in this space too. So certainly when I was in LA, I did an interview with Swedish TV, and I said, what's the appetite for this? And of course, them being part of the EU, it's like they want to have some change, but of course, the UK is not part of the EU anymore. So I don't know. I'm open to things, but they have to be big things. Like because I want to have like global impacts, like policy change, not like, okay, how do we change Kate here? Okay, fantastic. But there's plenty of other people that are passionate about doing that. That's not me. I want to change the whole system for everybody.
You want to reach for the stars.
Mm, that's right. Actually, now that you say that, some of the nurses that looked after Liv, they bought her a star and named a star after her.
But did they? That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's quite sweet. So I can pull out my phone, open the app, and see the star where Liv is.
Exactly where she is. That's gorgeous. I've got so many other things that I could ask you, but I actually am going to leave it there because I think that's a really nice place. It's Liv's story. And then down the track, if you're open to it, I'd love to come back and talk to you about the after effects with with your
Mm,
ex-wife, and how it affects the whole family. But for
mm,
today, unless Jen, you've got, I know you've been a bit quiet.
No, and that's purely because
okay.
I've come in late because I got caught up and I wasn't, I came into the conversation and I was just in awe of your strength, Rob, to be honest. So I was just listening it and taking in Liv's story, to be honest, and I didn't have any questions because you've been so open about it. So it was more about me just listening and taking it all in. And as a mum, I just don't, you're so strong in your convictions. I don't know how I would have coped. So
Yeah,
I,
look,
as a parent, it's
mm.
something
People
you
have
never want to
said
be faced with.
people have said to me, "Oh, you're so brave," and it doesn't feel like being. I can understand why people say it, but it doesn't
Mm,
feel brave because you just do what you feel is right to do. But I also
yeah.
know that as soon as you put your hand up to say, "Hey," people are going to say, "Well, what was your role? What did you do in this to give her the eating disorder?" And of course, people naturally say, "Oh, you worked in health and fitness. Clearly, you restricted." Her diet or had an impact on her restricting diet because of weight loss, whatever. But not one person ever asked me how I work with clients. And Liv used to say, my dad is my biggest fan and my biggest help in helping me want to eat again and do all that kind of stuff. But I did want to say that, like, if people are watching this and thinking, well, they just can't relate because if you're talking about $56 million or whatever, at the end of the day, I'm just a man and a dad and have a heart. I have a very big heart for a little man. But one of the things that I have found along my journey through all of this, because uh, I don't get any of the money, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it for impact. I still have a broken heart. And if you lose a child, I think a part of you dies forever. But I also like to think that out of that horrible place, something beautiful can grow. And I decided that I wanted to come up with a greater meaning for why Liv wasn't here anymore. And the fact that in some ways it doesn't make sense. And you can say, like, what did I do wrong? What did I say? What didn't I say? What role, did I play? Could I have played to get a different outcome? But the reality is, she's no longer suffering.
Yeah.
And hopefully, depending on your beliefs, and I said to her, well, because she used to like scary movies and she'd talk to me about death and stuff sometimes. And I said, well, it's either going to be beautiful and sunny and fluffy clouds and a lot of white around, or I said it's going to be really warm, it's going to be really red, and you're probably going to be poked in the butt with a pitchfork a lot. Um, so I like to think that like her suffering has ended and that the way that I process it is that she's doing all the beautiful things that she wants to, and she's just
Yeah.
happy, and maybe she's with her little pet cat Stripey, and she's just having a really beautiful time. Because if you can't find a greater meaning for things, you just stay immobilized and broken. And like as far as Em and her mum go, they can't do any of the media, they can't talk about it. They say, I don't know how you do it. But I just feel like it's just what I've been training my whole life for, I suppose, to make sure that we get change in a space where it's only getting worse in terms of our kids that are going through these things. So that's why I was so keen to jump on the social media side of things to have a systemic change there and these other like treatment options and everything as well too. Because look, it's heartbreaking. I get messages from kids that are in hospital that are don't know what to do and stuff, and it's like, oh, geez, it's not. I can't solve everybody's problems, but I
Yeah.
have to respond in a loving way and guide them in a way where they can get support and that kind of stuff. So it's hard, and I'm not Superman, right? There are days when I cry, and I don't have any problem admitting that because I've cried on national TV, blooming 3 times. Like, there's some horrific photos of me where I'm at a press conference and they've captured me crying and my mouth's open and
Not
they,
the ease, and
they look horrible, but I really don't care
that's
because
real.
it
But the
is
thing is, everyone would be looking at you at a loving, doting dad that's lost their baby, and that's all that they would see.
yeah,
It's
and all I think about is just being like vulnerable and real with people. And I think there's so much inauthenticity in the world and in social media and stuff that I just don't care. I know who I am as a man, and I'm proud enough to, cry in front of millions of people and still be okay with it and know that I'm still, still a man. But if I can have a positive impact, then fantastic. But I have some really bad days too. But I find ways to just refocus on, take time out. I have a cry. Sometimes I say, oh, I'm feeling a bit down today. Right. I'll put on even some sad music. I'll go for a walk for 15 minutes outside and I'll just cry.
yeah.
and then you can move on, like you feel better.
That's right. And so I'll say, all right, I'm going to listen to 3, 4 songs or walk around the block or whatever. It'll take about 15 minutes. I'll say, I'm going to cry, and then it's done. And now
Yeah,
let's just move on.
you talked about before about being brave, and you don't think you're brave. You're brave. I actually don't think you weren't given a choice. You had to stand up, and you
Mhm.
had to do what you were doing, or you would have crumbled. That's not. I agree. Like, yes, we see you as being brave, but you didn't have a choice but to be brave.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, I've spoken to, a number of people that have been in, so I've been invited to podcasts internationally, and I've had them on my show too, where they've lost family members and children and that kind of stuff. So many people turn to drugs, alcohol, gambling, other addictions and stuff. I've never drunk, I've never smoked, I've never taken any drugs, and I have this little thing that like Liv sits on this shoulder, and that I use harsh language. I don't swear, but I use harsh language. And like, imagine her talking to me saying, "Dad, I'm disgusted at you. Why are you,
Get
you
over
know,
it. Move
why are
on.
you not living your best life? Or why are you, doing that? Dad, I'm really happy here, and nobody that either takes their life or passes away is going to say, now, Kate, when I go, you better be miserable for the rest of your life. I don't want you achieving anything. I don't want you to be happy. I don't want you to ever do anything like that again.
It's
But
actually got nothing to do with the other person.
we stay immobilized sometimes, and you never forget. I explain it like it's the ocean, and I imagine, like my magical spot, if you like, is a spot on 4 Mile Beach up in Port Douglas. I know the palm tree. I know the temperature. I'm sitting in the shade, and the water's just coming in like this. And that's what it's like sometimes. Like, it's always moving though, right? It's never still. It's always moving. And then sometimes there's a tsunami, right? And that's what the emotion of this is like, for me. And you just know that, well, it's always there, but it's just sometimes it's beautiful to look at, and other times it's like, holy crap, we need to run.
Yeah.
And that's
I
when
love that analogy. That's beautiful.
everything.
I can picture it in my mind.
Yeah. So that's the way that I process it. I don't know whether it's right. For the record, so I often get asked, I have not had any professional counseling or grief counseling about live. Some people say that's really wrong. Um, I I've worked on myself for a long, long time. The important part, I think, is to just get it out of your head. And I record 2 podcasts a day where I don't just, talk about live, but I talk about, I'll say, turn what it is that maybe I'm feeling and say it's like it's a challenge, right? We all have challenges. It's like, well, losing a child, well, that's a challenge. It's a big challenge and it's devastating, but we all have challenges. So then I turn that into something. And I think there's a big part of, I could think all this stuff, but just saying the things out loud just is a freeing experience. And so that's why I'm like that. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should not go and have professional counseling, but people often ask me, and maybe people are listening saying, man, how much counseling have you had? Zero.
And
And I
it's
think it's
personal choice, right? It's personal
exactly
choice.
what I was going to say. Yep, it's
Yeah.
down to each individual.
Yeah,
Rob,
and there are some things that are like so personal to me that I just wouldn't want to talk to a stranger about it. So anyway, we could keep talking for hours.
we
I can
could.
tell you to wrap it up.
Rob, I can't thank you for enough for your raw, open, honest account of your beautiful daughter Liv. We will put all of your links and so forth on social media. We'll let you know when it's published. Thank you so much once again for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's an honor to be here. I hope it has a positive impact for the listeners.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Thanks, Rob.